Hi you guys. Okay, I am going to do my labor and delivery video. As you see, he's asleep. Well, I don't know. He's trying to sleep. I don't know. He doesn't want me to put him down. So we'll do this with him in my arms. Okay, on August 23rd, 2012, I woke up and for like that whole week I was just having really bad pains and uncomfortable, and it was just a lot. So like I didn't go to work for like one whole week, and I was just feeling it. Like I'm ready for this baby to come out. Um, so yeah, I called my doctor because I thought my water had broken. I obviously, the way the class told me was if you feel it run down your leg, then your water broke. So I was in the kitchen making me some oatmeal, had me a good old breakfast, and I went to the bathroom and I peed, but I got up and like a kind of a gush came out. So I was like, it's not like a big gush like you would think your water broke. It's a small one, and it was running down my leg. So I thought my water broke. So I went and called my doctor. Oh, I called T first, and I talked to him. He told me to call the doctor. So I called the doctor. The doctor was like, well, if you think your water's broken, then go to the emergency room and they'll check you. So I went to the emergency room and they checked me. I didn't go right away. First, it was like, this happened at 10 o'clock on the 23rd. And the only thing I've had to eat for that morning was oatmeal and like some tea or something. So I didn't go right away. I just like waited until like I felt contractions or something, and then I went. So I had been contracting anyway that whole night, the morning, whatever. But when I was in a lot of pain, I drove myself to the hospital, which is not common. I don't advise anybody to do that because what we found was it was hard for all of us to get all of our stuff packed up from the hospital when I did actually go into labor, if I was to go in labor, to get home. So don't do that. No. Unless it's an emergency. Then I got there. I went to the emergency room, triage. They set me up to labor and delivery, and they hooked me up to the monitors, and they tested my, not my urine, but like the area of what you would swab for where you pee. I don't know how to describe that, but that's what she did. And she told me my water hadn't broken, so she was like, well, we'll monitor you, and I'll call your doctor. And so she monitored me for an hour, and I was contracting consistently, but it wasn't strong. They were just contractions. And I had already been 1 centimeter for like 2 weeks. Since I was 37 weeks, I'd been 1 centimeter. And I was consistently still 1. So I just stayed there in there. And my doctor was doing rounds. So he came in and checked me. And he was like, well, you're almost 2, so we'll keep you for overnight for observation. And we'll just see if we'll do an induction in the morning. So they kept me overnight. While I was in triage, though, while I was in labor and delivery, I had to walk. When he first checked me, he was like, well, if you really want this to happen, you need to, yeah, I hear you talking to mommy. You have to do some walking. I was like, I have to walk? Do you know how much heavy weight I'm carrying to do walking? I'll show you guys a picture of how big I was. That's a lot of walking to hold that big baby. So I walked, and I walked, and I walked. I think I walked like 3 miles. I swear I walked like 4 or 5 miles. Did you just burp? Yeah, gross. So that was a little stinky. Oh, stinkers. Okay. Where's your book? I'm sorry, you guys. Okay. Then, after being observed overnight, I had to walk all night. So at 4 o'clock, they let me sleep between 12:30 and like almost 2, and then I couldn't sleep anymore. I was uncomfortable, so I got up and started walking. And you want this? There you go. Then I went. Where did I go? I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. He's distracting me. I went to the walk the halls of labor and delivery, and within doing that, I was trying to get my water to break or him to come down some more or my contractions to get stronger, whatever the case may be, so that they would keep me over for the next day. So I kept doing that. My doctor was still doing rounds that day. I guess somebody he was with, one of his patients was delivering. So he came in and he checked me again, and he's like, well, you're still 1 to 2 and you're making progress, but you're not making enough progress, so you can either get hooked up to the Pitocin or you can go home. And the nurse came in and explained it to me. She's like, yeah, if your doctor asks, we'll hook you up to the Pitocin and we'll see if we can get some stronger contractions out of you. And, you know, if it works, then you'll stay. If not, you know, we can always just turn it off. Since your water hasn't broken, you can go home and we could just try it again. And I was like, okay, well, I called my mom and I talked to her about it, and she's just like, well, whatever you want to do, we'll do. And this happened at 6 in the morning. Yeah, like 6:15, something like that. And so, yeah. And then I had a doctor's appointment on the 24th, the next day. So, the nurses were really nice to me, and they told me about what to expect with first-time moms and stuff like that, and how long it might take, and all the walking I'm doing. They said I'm doing great, all of that stuff. So I felt good. And T helped me as much as he could. So I was so tired because the night before I had been doing step-ups, jumping jacks, lunges, everything to get him out. So my legs were super sore. I know they look good though. They were sexy, but they were super sore. So at 6:57 on the 24th of August 2012, I got my Pitocin hooked up and I got induced. My cervix was already 3 centimeters, but it was like 85% efface, almost 90. By the time I was 6 centimeters, I had no more cervix. Like, I was thinned all the way out. Like, everything was gone. I just had to come down and be 10 centimeters. That was it. So, my doctor came in at 9-ish, like 8, almost 8:30, 9 o'clock, and broke my water. When he did that, oh my God, those contractions are no joke. I know you see the videos and all the moms, expecting moms say, that is like the worst pain ever. I didn't believe I could make it. I do not see how women do natural births. I don't see it. I almost died. I felt like my insides were being ripped out a part of me. I love my son to death, but there's no way in heck I would do that again. Like, no time soon. Because that pain is unbearable. And my nurse was like, and I was trying really hard. I did at least 4 or 5 centimeters dilated with the contractions without an epidural. By the time I got my epidural, I was like almost 6, 7. So I could have probably did it all the way, but I was almost dying in that process. So I was like, no, I'm good. So my nurse was like, I don't know why she's trying to be so strong. I would get an epidural. So I think around my 5th centimeter and like my maybe 12th contraction of pain, of just like unbearable pain, I finally called him and I let him know that I'm really ready for an epidural. So I called my nurse, and she just walked in the door when I was having a contraction, talking about, I want an epidural, because every contraction I said it, but then after it was over, I was like, I can do this, I can do this. So she had just walked in when I had the contraction, and I was like, I can't do this, I need an epidural. So she gave me an epidural. Well, she called the anesthesiologist. He came in, and I was freaking out when that happened, because my philosophy is I don't like to not see the needle. I have to see where the needle's going to go. I need to know what's going to happen to me. And I didn't know what was going to happen, so I was freaking out. So my best friend, she was there with me, Michelle, and she had just came in, and I was like, I'm getting epidural. And she was like, well, I'll stay in here with you. And T had just left to go get my younger sister and my grandma from in the lobby. So he couldn't be in there with me. So I had the opposite side. I was burping on this side. So I called her over to the edge of the bed. They told me to sit up, and I did, and I was freaking out. Like, right when he was about to do it, I had a contraction. I didn't even feel that contraction, and that was the hardest contraction I had, like the worst pain I ever endured with that contraction, and I didn't even feel it. I was just like so content. I didn't even know I was having a contraction because I was getting an epidural. That pain of not knowing the needle's coming is what freaked me out, so I didn't even know I was having a contraction. So I got that around, we'll say 3:30, and I had a lot more pressure after that. Like, I was numb, but it was tingly. It wasn't like my stomach was all the way, like I didn't feel anything, but my legs were really tingly. Like if you ever notice, like when your foot are going to sleep, that's what it felt like. And somebody walked by the window, and I'm like freaking out, so I don't know who it is. Sorry. So yeah, and I was really tingly, so I got over the tingly, and it was starting to be numb. I could still kind of move my legs, but it was kind of like I couldn't. And my whole thing was I didn't want to get the epidural because I didn't want to not have control over my legs and my body. And it instantly started working, so I instantly didn't have that feeling or whatever. So, what else? Let's see. But yeah, I had a lot of pressure, and I was feeling this build up, and I think they made me do like the flip over. I don't know if anybody out there knows what that is, but they flip you on your hands and knees, and they make you like kind of like get in a squat position, but on your hands and knees like the dog, I guess, doggy style, and you sway kind of back and forth as much as you can move to get the baby to come down and to get the baby to get in position right. So if he's turned face up, he'll go face down, which means this is what my son did as well. My son was head down, like his head was down, but where my pelvis sits, his face was facing my pelvis when it's supposed to be turned the other way. So this is the back of his head, and this is where my pelvis is, and he's supposed to slide out like that, but he was going to slide out like this. So they had to turn him, which was kind of painful a little bit for me, but it wasn't as bad because they turned my epidural down a little bit, but it wasn't turned down enough. So I was still really numb during contraction, during pushing. When he finally did break my water, I was like, you're still gonna leak or whatever. So when I flipped over, I was still kind of like leaking, and then when I flipped back, I was just like sitting in this wet spot, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of gross to me. What else happened? A lot of the times they tell you you're going to get sick. Like during labor, all I had was like ice chips. I had ice, I had water, I had Jello, and like some broth. That's what the cafeteria brought me. The only thing I really ate was probably like I had some Jello, popsicles while I was walking, and water. And that's because I needed the sugar because I hadn't eaten since the day before, and all I had was oatmeal. And like, what is that going to do to me? I mean, it was fiber. I really just wanted to poop. That's about it. So I got sick around like 7-ish, like 6:30, 7 o'clock. When it was almost time for me to push, I got sick. So I was sitting in the bed, and this is how I knew I had to push, and I didn't know. I was just really feeling like this knot in between my legs, and it was just like this big knot. And I was trying not to call the nurse in because I wasn't really sure what it was. I was just assuming it was Cameron his head coming down. I didn't know his head was coming out. So his head was like right there at my opening. So it was like 7 o'clock when I started pushing, and he came out at like 7:15. So like only 15 minutes worth of pushing, and his head has like a knot on it from pushing. And the doctor's like, oh, it'll go down the next day. And because when I first started, they still had to turn him, but when he was pushing himself out, his head was just sitting right there, and that's where the little knot on his head came from. And it didn't go away. It's still there, but we've been praying over it, and the doctors, if it doesn't go down by his 2-month appointment, we're gonna make sure they do something with that, because I don't like that knot on his head. I really don't. And then recovery wasn't that bad. When we moved to the recovery room, I didn't have to get stitches. I tore a little bit, but I didn't have to get any stitches. He said it was not bad enough that I had to get stitches, so I healed really quickly. Like the next day, I was getting up, walking around, going to the bathroom on my own, and I was like freaking out a little bit because once I got home, the pain was still like, I didn't have pain in the hospital, but I was having like this burning, itchy pain in my area or whatever, and I just really didn't understand why I was having that pain because I didn't have it at the hospital, and that's usually right after you give birth. So I called, back to the hospital, and I asked them, and they told me, oh, that's normal, it happens. And so I didn't freak out too much, but I was just like, well, I don't really like that too much. So that happened, and the like once I got to the recovery room, everybody came to visit, and that was nice. And like he slept pretty good there in the hospital, and he sleeps pretty good now. So, you know, the same order of operations happens. You know, he was calm there, he's calm now, and it's been almost a month, and labor and delivery was not bad. I would do it again. I'm not going to do it anytime soon, but I would do it again within the next between 4 and 5 years, because I want Cameron to be old enough to understand what's happening to me and, you know, into our family. I don't want it to just be like, oh, he's 2, so let's give another baby, you know. No, I want him to understand. Once he's potty trained, he can go to school and bring home homework, then we'll have another baby. But I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't take anything back. I really enjoyed the labor and delivery, being in the hospital. I couldn't wait for that process. Like, I was over being pregnant. I was over the whole anticipation. I was just like, come on with it. Like, I just wanted him out so bad. And I thank God for the easy labor, because my labor was not hard. I didn't have any complications. His heart rate stayed afloat. I gave a vaginal birth. I can do another vaginal if I want. And I'm just happy with the outcome. And I got a beautiful little baby out of it. So that's my labor and delivery story. Anybody have any questions or concerns or comments, please post at the bottom. And thank you for watching my video. If you want to subscribe to my page, that'd be great. Me and Cameron appreciate it. And I'll say this one more time. Say bye. Say I sleep. Say I'm asleep. He's knocked out. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.